Hey guys, Random Ranger here. I'm starting a new YouTube series to go with my new YouTube channel. This series will be focused on how I finish my foam props. Today we're talking about pre-sealing, so preparing for the sealing step, and then we're going to talk about sealing, and then we're going to talk about painting, and then we're going to talk about weathering and other stuff. Kwikseal is an adhesive caulk. If you're not aware, it's typically used for sealing like bathtubs or something to make them waterproof. We're going to be using it in our foam props for our cosplay. And so why do we do that? Well, when you're working with foam and you're making your cuts, your bevels, if you're sanding it, hitting it with a Dremel, whatever it is you're doing, foam has a couple nasty tendencies. One, it has a tendency to get really fuzzy, and it has a tendency to get like random gouges or pinholes, or maybe there's like a deformation, general imperfections. And we're going to be using kwikseal to help mask and cover up these imperfections. While a lot of these imperfections may look like they're not that important, like, oh, no one's going to notice this tiny little nick underneath the guardrail, and because it's so small, no one's ever going to see it. Well, because when I seal my props, I use leakseal. Leakseal has a tendency to amplify these imperfections, and so even if that imperfection isn't so noticeable, chances are that there are a ton of other imperfections you can't even see with your eye that are going to pop up. For example, one of the ones that seems to afflict me most often is I'll miss like a fuzzy texture somewhere, and when I go to spray the leakseal on, it'll result in a real rough surface texture that you have to sand for a really long time, and then it doesn't go away. So in terms of the whole process of building a prop, the kwikseal pre-sealing step is pretty quick. You can usually get it done in like within a day, just a few hours of work. But when you spend weeks making that prop beforehand, and then probably a couple more weeks sealing it and then painting it and weathering it, it's really important to pay attention to these few hours. So don't rush it. Okay, I'm back. So it's a day later now. Yesterday I went ahead and I did some of the kwikseal on this rifle, anywhere that I had basically just been hitting with a Dremel, because sanding leaves a rougher surface than cutting or than the top surface that you can get on the factory version of the foam. So I was just using kwikseal to get that smooth. I did that. I recorded that, but I didn't have good audio running. So fortunately, we have some more spots on here. We're just going to record some of that and show you. But yeah, so this is what it'll look like. So basically, you're just looking for any rough spots that, if you run your finger over it, say like right here, then and you can feel like a texture versus like the factory finish, then that's a spot you're going to want to hit with kwikseal. You may not be able to see a visual difference, but if you can feel it with your finger, then when you apply the leakseal is going to know the difference, and it will end up being a ugly, rough texture that you have to spend forever sanding. So let's take a look at some more of the rough spots that I missed. Mosquito. And let's finish this prop up. Okay, so here we go. We're at the table, and you can see, this is where we've put kwikseal before. This kwikseal is actually ready for sanding, which is the next step. There's a lot of rough spots on this piece right here. So I can feel with my finger, right here is super rough. This edge, you can almost hear that. Let me get the mic in closer. It's super rough. So we're gonna definitely have to kwikseal this. I don't want to kwikseal too hard along this edge, because there's a lot of detailed grooves right here. And if I get kwikseal inside these grooves, it's going to be very difficult to get out. So I'm also going to want to be careful I want to get this edge because this edge is rough, but I'm also going to be careful because there's detail triangles and such along this edge. So we're going to try to be a little lighter on the kwikseal. But let's grab a paper towel, and we're going to need to dampen our finger just a little bit, just to help make the kwikseal slide. I like to put a clip on my kwikseal just to help keep it folded once I start getting through it. And yeah, here we go. We're just gonna put a little dab on right here. Yep, just a little bit. And then basically we're just gonna redamp my finger. We're just gonna rub this in. It's really easy to use too much, and it's also really easy to use too little. Fortunately, it's not too difficult to come back from either of those. You can always take it off. You can always add more on. So here we go. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but now this is pretty covered. And I'm just trying to get this edge. I don't want to come up into this corner because there's a this detail circle right here, whatever that is. And I don't want to blend that into the main prop because that'll take away some of my detail. But I do want to try to get this edged bevel right here. So let's just put some, while being careful about this detail line. It's actually going to be really tricky. So let's try it. Let's give it a shot. This tube is just about out. Let's just do a little bit. Start out with a little bit. Here we go. Be really careful. I like to use my other fingers for wiping away kwikseal I don't want there. Here we go. And this isn't too tricky. This isn't one of those skills that's super hard to master. You should be able to pick up on this pretty quick if you haven't done this before. Here we go. Just brush that in. And every prop will look different at the end of the kwikseal cycle. Some props need a lot of kwikseal and others need very little. This one will end up needing a lot because it was a lot of raw dremeling. So a lot of these edges and such are dremeled, giving it that really rough but invisible texture. And that's going to result in the rough leakseal product that we don't want. But some of my other props, like my torso piece, didn't need very much because it was a lot of clean edges, and any of the dremeled bits, a lot of the times I was able to put on the inside the seams or on the inside of the armor. So it was almost all surface foam, you know, the factory finish on the top. And so that doesn't need kwikseal. So yeah, here we go. Looks like we didn't get any in that detail groove. So let's just go ahead and keep going. I'll do a little bit more of this fuzzy, cleaning up these fuzzies, and then I'll show you some of the other stuff I use kwikseal for. Yeah, just rub this in. You're not looking to add material, you're just looking to smooth out the texture so that when you go to paint it, it applies smooth, and ideally you'll never know that the kwikseal is there. Okay, I think that's about good for, I still want to go around here, but you guys get the idea. Like, these are beveled edges. I'm just going over it with kwikseal and applying some until it feels smooth. It's really hard to get rid of these grain lines. However, I've noticed that if you just minimize them as much as you can, and then once it cures, if you go over and sand it, then the grain lines don't seem to appear inside of the prop once it's been leak sealed and painted. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. As long as you can't like feel a bump on it, it shouldn't be a big issue. Let's see if we can find any nicks or gouges or something else here. Right here, there's a little prick that I added in for the sake of this video, but we can just go over with kwikseal and just squeeze some kwikseal on that, fill that in, and there we go. Now that shouldn't appear at all. the back of that stick on my barrel had a large gap in it, and yes, so yesterday I filled that in with kwikseal. However, if you can see, there's still a little bit of a gap there. And so I'm gonna have to go over that with another round of kwikseal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna fill that in. And some of these edges are still kind of rough on here because I didn't focus too much on this part yesterday. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Redamp my finger because it's starting to get a bit dry. And let's just rub this in. I need a little bit more. And sometimes it can be tricky to get this stuff flush because your finger will flex into the divot you're trying to fill, and it'll actually dig some of the kwikseal out. So sometimes it's useful to use like a flat object like metal ruler, or sometimes I'll use the back side of my X-Acto blade and just clean that out and get it real flat. But yeah, so that looks good. Let's check the other side. There's a little bit of it. There's some gaps here, so let's fill this in. Okay, let's see if we can find something else that needs filling. There is a crevice right here that didn't quite get filled in with the foam. And so I'm just going to take this tube, just going to apply some pressure and then just glide this along. And it'll just fill that right in. There we go. And I'm not even gonna wipe my finger on that. Oh, I want to get this corner a little bit better though. You might not be able to see that, but there's this little gap right there. There's a couple little nicks on these corners. Let's see if I can just clean that up a little bit. You can barely see them. I can barely see them, but the leakseal will most certainly see them. There, you might be able to see it now that it's highlighted in white. Here I have one of my magnets for mounting, and I want to fill this gap in right there with kwikseal. There's a little bit of a gap next to it. So we're just gonna put that down and then put some kwikseal down. There we go. Let's just rub that in a little bit. Well, it's actually not quite as flush as I would like. I'm just using the back of the tube. It's kind of like a scraper. There we go. There we go. That looks good. Well, considering there's a magnet there. Fill in. There's a little crack right there, so I'm just going to fill that in. There's a little nick right here. Just going to fill that in. Yep. There's another little nick right here. Just going to fill that in. Oh, and another one right here. You want to check all your corners, because corners are really common, at least for me, for getting accidental nicks. Right here, there's a whole gap that I don't think I want there. So I'm just gonna come along with this, and hold the prop steady, and I'm just gonna fill this gap in with some light to medium pressure on the tube, and just slowly slide this along. And there we go. There, now that crack will be invisible. If you can see that, there's gaps right here in these corners. So I want to go ahead and fill that in as well. So we're just going to take the tube, just give it a good squeeze, and then pull and glide. Yep, just fill that in. Sweet. Oop, just need a little bit more. There we go, that's looking good. And then that should be rendered basically invisible. Unless you're really looking for it, then it might still show up because it was that big. Now that we've finished quick sealing our prop, we're gonna have to just let this sit and wait for about 24 hours. That's about how long it takes this stuff to cure. After that, you're gonna wanna look over your prop again, really get to the nitty gritty and see if you missed any crevices, any corners, any fuzzy edges. You wanna double check that if you had to fill any gaps, that all those gaps come out level. And because, you know, if you're going to need to apply another layer of kwikseal on top of that layer to help fill that gap, you're going to want to do that now, because otherwise you're going to apply your leakseal and then you're going to notice the gap and you're going to have to do kwikseal on top of the leakseal and then leakseal again. And it's a pain. You know, if the prop's all good and you don't need to do any extra work, now is when you can sand the leakseal. Some people will say leakseal isn't sandable. It's definitely sandable. You just have to use a relatively high grit sandpaper and really light pressure. Emphasis on light pressure, just like brushing the surface. I like to use 320 grit, partly because that's what I have, and also because I just know it works for me. Let's take a look at some sanding, and then once that's done, our prop should be good. All right, okay guys, I just want to show you a little bit of sanding. It's really not that hard. All I do is I just make a little square or some 320 sandpaper, and I find some spots that I had leak sealed, like right here. And I'm just going to go over this with my sandpaper, just real lightly. I'm not trying to remove kwikseal. I'm just trying to smooth out this texture so that when I rub my finger along it, it feels really smooth. Because if it feels smooth to your finger, it's going to feel smooth to the leakseal. I'm not applying a lot of pressure. I'm basically just putting my hand down, not just like using the weight of my hand, and I'm just pulling my hand along. There we go, that feels pretty smooth. There's a little rough spot right here that could probably use some more, could have used a little bit more Dremel or some more kwikseal, but we're gonna ignore that for the time being. The side is still a little rough. I know I didn't go as strong on the kwikseal on the side, so that's to be expected. There we go, that feels a lot smoother. You might be able to hear the difference. So I'm just gonna come in here with the sandpaper. You can, here, listen to this. I'm not applying any pressure. I'm just gliding the sandpaper along. And it's just gonna change this texture to be real smooth. That's so smooth now. But right here you can hear how rough this is, maybe, and how smooth this is. So let's go ahead and sand this. There you go, listen to that. You can barely hear it. It's so much smoother. And then yeah, I'm gonna have to sand through all of this, all of the back, and etc. But I can do that off camera. But that's it. You just sand it and get it smooth, and ideally the prop is ready for leak seal. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this was both fun and educational for you. If there are videos that you'd like to see me do in the future, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what kinds of videos you guys are interested in seeing. I already have planned to do a guide on how to buy different types of foam, how to seal your props using leak seal, painting, and weathering. I would like to do one on foam construction, but if there's any specific parts of like foam construction that you want to see, I'd like to hear what parts of the process you're interested in seeing. Might also be able to do like basic Photoshop tutorials for like how do you make a cosplay photo look good, how do you set up composition for it. Or I also made a Reach undersuit. I could do a video on basic sewing techniques for how to create something like that. I'm not particularly great at it, but I know enough to where I think I can help get people up off the ground. And without further ado, thanks for watching. If you're still sticking around, I would like to use the last bit of this video to introduce myself a little bit. I am a software engineer, so I am doing these videos and my costume building in my free time outside of work. I just picked up this hobby about a year or two ago. I was fortunate enough to make friends with a very talented foam smith by the name of Master Colt 117. You should check out his Instagram if you would like to see some really cool Master Chief cosplay. My takeaway is if I can come into this at ground zero, not knowing anything, then make something like this, I just want to emphasize how anyone can do it. The biggest trick or the biggest piece of advice that I could offer to anyone is just have patience. You know, take your time with things, pay attention to the details. Various creators or YouTubers or other cosplayers may talk a lot about tips and tricks and, oh, you can do yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to, I think, just paying attention to detail and finding ways to solve problems that you discover in the details that you're paying attention to. And I think that's where you can do, where you can invest a lot of your time and energy into investing into yourself and figuring things out for your own, and then naturally finding what works for you. But that's who I am. I'm just a guy who started picking this hobby up, made a decent costume, and was like, oh, it'd be fun to start a YouTube channel too. So that's who I am. I'm interested in seeing what your guys' backgrounds are. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you have a lot of experience in cosplay and you're still watching this, or if you're just starting and you need some motivation because you don't know where to go to from here. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.